And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
All right, we're live, people.
Good morning, everybody. Live today. Listen, we got a great guest for you. I look forward to it. Tom Lapolla, 38 years he served with the FDNY. Unfortunately, he was wrongfully terminated from the fire department. He's going to tell his story. But what's more important now is he's running for the 99th Assembly District in New York. So, Tom, let's get right into it. You know, have an opportunity to tell your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you grew up and how you got into serving in the fire department, and tell us a little bit about your career.
All right. Yeah. Morning, gentlemen, and thanks for this opportunity. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, I was born in the Bronx, right, as a kid, and normally people go north after they're born, but my parents took me to Staten Island, so I spent my formative years in Staten Island, right? Grew up there, met my wife there. When we got married, we figured, excuse me, we got to move upstate, so we moved to Orange County, 1988. And so we raised our family up here, got 3 beautiful children, all raised. And I have 3 grandchildren, and I can officially say it now. Number 4 is on the way.
Oh, God bless you,
I have the 4th one. And so I don't know if I told you, but before I did enter the New York City Fire Department, I did go to the police academy. So I never say I was a cop, because that would be almost like embarrassing. But I was a police academy graduate. I can say that. I did. Wow. I did 3 weeks in Times Square. Take the little kid from Staten Island, a 21-year-old kid from Staten Island, and put him in Times Square. It was a shock.
That's a great story, because
I want some of those pitches, Tom.
Me too. I mean, listen, arguably with the way they lowered standards right now and the way things are going in this country, your academy was by far more in depth than what's going on right now. So be proud of it.
Oh no, I was. I tell you, I was honored to go to the police academy, and it was made some really good friends too. Learned a lot, and when I got promoted to battalion chief, you needed college credits. I'm the only one in my family that doesn't have a college degree, but the points I got from the police academy got me over that hump. So I enjoyed it immensely. I did. I enjoyed the police academy, but I was a kid, and I got sworn in as a New York City police officer, 20 years old. I remember we got sworn in at FIT, and next thing I know, everybody's calling us officer. I'm like, where are the cops? He goes, no, you're a police officer now. I says, oh. But it was
Tom, what year did you go in, and what made you go in? Did you have family that were in public service, or did your friends just start to do it and you're like, let me do it? Like, what happened there?
It was all 84. So I had never aspired to be a police officer. I took the test because my fire department test was in litigation. It was the list before me was in litigation. So I thought I'd be delayed in getting hired. So I was going to college at Staten Island. My wife was there. She's got her master's degree from there, but I wasn't doing so well. The police academy, since I did take the test as a backup, and my father-in-law at the time was still at 122 precinct. I took that as a backup, and I didn't realize within 6 months I would get called over to the fire department. Son of a fireman. My father was a fireman. He did 28 years, God rest his soul. So I wanted to follow in Dad's footsteps. He worked as a fireman in Staten Island in 157 engine ladder 80. He always defended his Staten Island fireman. He always thought people made fun of him because he was a fireman in Staten Island. Where he worked was a phenomenal firehouse. They did so much work, but he always had that stigma. It's the Staten Island fireman. Staten Island firemen are some of the greatest firemen I had ever met. So that's what I used to go to the firehouse when I was a kid. Dad's going to get his check. The fireman tell me jokes and buy me a soda. That's what I want to do.
Let me tell you, Tom, when I first started out, my first 5 years on the job. I worked in a 120 precinct, which was in Staten Island. Yeah. And I tell you, the firemen, they were great to me because I was doing my foot post on Jersey Street, in was it West Brighton or Stapleton? Yeah. I was doing my post on in Park Hill and Stapleton in the house, and we were lucky because the firehouses happened to be close to our post. And man, they were good to me because we were standing out there, and in heat and cold, and they took care of us, man. They were good. They came out and brought us water. Plenty of times we went in and we chipped in a couple of bucks and we had lunch with them, and I was like, thinking back then, I'm like, did I take the right job? And I have to be honest, I didn't have interest. I wasn't, Johnny did the same thing. I wasn't interested in fire service. For some reason, I was interested in transition to law enforcement because initially I wanted to stay in the Marines. That was my career. That was what I envisioned. Stay in the Marines. I wanted to be a Jaguar. So, and then eventually my father was like, hey, it'd be nice to have a cop in the family. But my cousin's a fireman, and like I said, we were talking offline, and I would always laugh because I would look at my calendar. I'm like, dude, it's crazy because I got to figure out when I'm going, when I have a day off. You got to look at your calendar, figure out when you're working. But man, fire department's a great job. It really is.
Quick, I see, but what you just described and the way you describe both of yourselves and how I look at it, this wasn't necessarily a job for us. It's a vocation. The way you described it, it's a vocation. We were civil servants because that's the nature of the way the city set it up. But this was our vocation, and that's why you guys did such a great job, because you didn't just look at it as a job or a civil service position, 20 and out, and I'm done. And no, that was a vocation. Major difference. Major difference.
Tom, what was your favorite thing about being a fireman? What was your favorite thing about, what was your favorite time and the favorite thing about being a fireman?
Well, first of all, going to fires was always fun. Every man, everybody wants to go to work and do their job. Most of the time, I mean, besides you're training a lot, you're taking care of the administrative work, but going to fires is what you wanted to do. And that's what everyone looked forward to. And if you missed the job, you got mad. I should have had, remember then the big fire in the Trump building a few years ago? I had a few incidents during his campaign, white powder incidents. I had just got relieved. I never leave early, but I had to catch a train because it was a weekend. Otherwise, I would have waited 3 hours. My friend JC was in. I said, JC, you got the helm. I'm leaving. I get home. My dad calls me. He goes, I thought you were working. No, I just got home, Dad. Well, you just missed the job. I put on the news, and it's a big fire. Unfortunately, somebody passed away in it, but that would have been my fire. I was livid. But that's par for the course. Going to fires was it. But I always told the guys, what my favorite part of the fire was? When it was out. Because fires are dangerous. I loved going into work. No place like the firehouse kitchen. If anything, I think it's trained me to be a politician, because I can go to Albany. I have no fear of any Albany politician, professional politician. I am a politician now by default, but I'm not a professional politician. And these guys up there, I don't expect to change much. I'm going to do my best to work hard and represent the people in the 99th district. But the Albany politicians who are leading this state to, like I expressed to you before, to the least free state in the country, they'll hear from me. And I learned that in the firehouse kitchen.
Tom, with your experience, maybe you could educate the public a little bit, and some of our viewers, and including myself, just to refresh my memory, because my cousin, he's an awesome fireman. Let me tell you, and anytime he would ever come over my house, which was quite often, we were close, still are. It's just right now I'm in California, but he would always tell me, like, get rid of these candles. He would always, because I used. I'd always have candles in the house, and he like, get rid of those things. Could you tell like, what are your thoughts about candles? Because I know most firemen hate candles, and if you could educate like what it is about candles that is so.
I'll keep it short. Your cousin's right. I don't like candles in the house either. Maybe for a romantic dinner with the bride, glass of wine, I have no problem with that. Maybe going to church and lighting a candle, but really just for decorations. I agree with your cousin, because how does every big fire start? As a very small fire, and that's how I look at it. So I'm not a fan of it. I agree with him. Every big fire. I mean, and it's funny because you guys and what you did, security and law enforcement, everybody in the city, especially like the inner city, they're fearful of robbery and crime being committed, and everyone understands that. Until no one really focuses on fire safety and how tragic that can be, because they see crime more often than they see fire. But fire safety is a key thing. Especially, I mean, it's funny. I always ask people, like, I did some fire drills in Midtown Manhattan and high-rise office buildings. I was most of my career in tenement area. But I mean, I'm just going to throw a little bit of anecdotal, but I'm pretty sure it's accurate. You know when most people die in fires? What type of a home that what type of a building most people die in a fire? Private dwellings. The house that I'm living in now. The house that most of you guys probably grew up in.
Get out of here. Really? Wow.
Most people, I'm talking a national level. And that's
Wow.
because you have open stairs. It's the layout. No, very few people die in high-rise office buildings. They're very well regulated. Residential MDs, obviously, they see that, but small private dwellings, more people dying.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so that's.
So Tom, let's get into it a little bit. All right. So politics, basically, you're well respected in the FDNY. I have a ton of friends and a ton of family in the FDNY. I always say I took the wrong job. I had no idea about the fire department until I already became a cop. And just like Eric, my experiences with firemen were when I was a cop. And yeah. I loved it. I was like, well, I loved interacting with you guys. And most of my friends became firemen. Either, went right from the street, or I worked with some guys like yourself who, they were cops and they were like, I'm going to the fire department, bro. Fire department's the best job in the world. And they went over to fire. But so I know a lot of people that know you. A lot of people respect you. I'm one of those people. I mean, you were definitely a light in a dark time in New York City for me, personally. Could you tell everybody like what happened that ended your career in the FDNY? I mean, I'm just talking to you right now, and I could tell you would have aged out. You weren't planning on leaving,
No, actually, last July 11th would have been my 40th anniversary with the fire department. That was my intent. If the COVID mandate did not come about, I would have been retiring July 11th. I would have been putting my papers in. So I would have had my 40. My goal was 40 years. But like everybody knows, make plans, God laughs. So I had really expected to do 40. Go back 2 years, COVID, we worked through it. I mean, I worked through it. I wasn't doing the hands-on, but I was watching the men and women of the New York City Fire Department going out every day, exposing themselves. No one knew what the heck was going on. Traveling into work, change schedule. I mean, we understood what was taking place. It was dangerous at the time. At least we thought it was. And for the most part, it was. But we still had a lot to learn. Then all of a sudden, it was October. It was September 11th, 2021, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We started to hear rumors of mandates, and that started taking place, and that we heard in the background. And we had a pretty good visit on the 11th that year. I think he's running for the 47th presidency. Donald J. Trump stopped by. So we had a good shot with him. He stopped by to see us and the good men and women of the 17th precinct. But then a month later, again, now it's October, the fire department Memorial Day, one of the most solemn days in the New York City Fire Department, where we remember everybody that passed the previous year and all the men and women who have died in the past. Great day. But I won't say his name, but the commissioner at the time took it upon himself to publicly state on that day, that most solemn of all days, to state that he was in favor of a mandate for his members. This was the day that it was an hour after he just commemorated and memorialized the men and women that died the previous year. He was in favor of it. I won't say his name, but and I heard that. And then about 2 weeks later, one of the lieutenants in my command texted me, goes, the mandate's in. Ooh. So I said, okay. I had accrued about 1,500 hours of comp time. And I'm just going to start taking it. I'll just grin and bear it, and I'll take a month at a time. So I put my month in for November to see how it goes. I got a call from the 3rd Division. Hey, Tom, you can't put your time in. What do you mean? I earned it. It's mine. Now, if you want to start taking your comp time now, you have to retire. Excuse me? I gave you 1,500 hours. These are my hours. No, you have to retire. I don't want to retire. No, you have to retire if you want to take your time. Otherwise, you're going to get fired. So that's why I tell everyone I did retire, and I was blessed to have my pension, but I was terminated. And I make no bones about it. And the reason I tell it, because that's how I see it, and because there are still members of the New York City Fire Department, still members of your agency that I've been working closely with, Sal and And Marlon, who I think you had on the show, I just got to know Marlon, a phenomenal man. And I got Sal in the New York City Fire Department. Karen, I'm not going to give you a whole story, but Karen, I don't want to say her last name, but Karen was phenomenal. And Matt, I know all these guys. I saw a sanitation worker once up in Albany at one of these rallies, which kind of prompted me after we all got terminated. I saw this young man. I saw the sadness in his eyes. Again, I'm happy. I have 4 grandchildren. I could walk away my pension. They took away these men and women's ability to earn a living. And so I was like, so I walked away. And again, that's why I tell everyone that I was fired. And they laugh at me. They actually, and I won't say get mad, but some people go, how's your retirement going? Like, that's the normal. How's your retirement going? I got fired. Again, I'm not in a bad shape. You know, is there a certain amount of anger? I'll work that out. It's not a big deal. But my anger is more towards watching the men and women that still have yet to get back to work. And there are a handful of them out there. And that's, I'm gonna, and I promised my friend Matt and Paul and Sophie, I'm going to continue to advocate for them right up until the time when I get up to Albany. Then first bill, and I told everyone at a fundraiser in Staten Island at the Point. So I'm going to give them a little plug. It's my cousin's joint. When a bill passes, or when those men and women get back to work, first round's on me at the Point.
I'm glad that you mentioned this, because I think that some people may have a subjective point of view in regards to your career and say, wait a minute, Tom, you did 38 years. You only had 2 more years. You already were pretty much close to retirement. They might say, what's the big deal? But hearing you say it, it is a big deal, because you wanted to retire on your own terms, and you already envisioned on serving 2 more years because you had a passion. You loved what you did. And what's great about that is what I hear a man that had an opportunity to walk away and said, you know what? I got a substantial retirement. I got my pension. I'll just go live my life in bliss. But what I heard from you is, no, you want to defend the men and women so that this doesn't happen again, and that you actually get to leave on your terms, and that the job shows you the love that you showed the job because of the politics that's infected it. So moving forward in local government, how would you get together with constituents, or how would you build a network to combat, if God forsake, there's some other form of compliance that changes the trajectory of blue collar workers in New York City, changes their trajectory of their career? They're put in a position like yourself where they're forced to retire. How do we combat this moving forward?
The first thing we should have recognized 3 years ago is we can never set the Constitution aside at the expense of protecting certain people's vision of how they envision the world should be. We set the Constitution aside. There was the New Jersey governor was asked by Tucker Carlson a question about the Bill of Rights. He says, that's not my problem. I don't have to deal with that. He basically stated, we'll ignore the Bill of Rights because we have to address an emergency. No, that's not in the Constitution. So, and we, everyone knows the quote from Franklin. I think it's attributed to Franklin. If you're willing to give up liberty for security, you're entitled to none. I paraphrased it, but that would be my main focus in letting the constituents know. But a lot of the constituents up here, their focus right now is, and rightfully so, we got the illegal immigration crisis, which you guys have been documenting well. And a friend of mine, Steph Liggio, who's running against Carl Heastie, I'm going to give her a little plug. These aren't even illegal immigrants anymore. I mean, they are. I'm looking at this as an invasion force, and that's exactly what we're looking at. An invasion force, the crime issue, right? Cashier's bail policies, and I sadly I have my thoughts in my head from one of my speeches, and the cashless bail policy took the life of a young officer, Jonathan Diller, right? I tell everyone he should be home playing catch with his son and growing old with his bride. Instead, he was given an inspector's funeral. I mean, and we don't want to address cashless bail. And then you got Laken Riley. Laken Riley was murdered by an illegal immigrant, right? We had him here in New York State. We can't give him over to ICE. And then Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinner, which was quoted, and I'm going to paraphrase it, We want people to come to this country and feel safe that they can pursue their dreams. Well, first of all, he came into the country illegally, and then he committed a crime here in New York State. He didn't come here to pursue his dreams. He came here to pillage and plunder. And then we let him off. He goes to Georgia and butchers this young girl. And we can't get support for Lakin's law. And right now in New York State, in Albany, and kudos to the leadership in the Republican GOP in the Assembly and the Senate up there, the Democrats own every problem here in New York State. They have a supermajority in the Assembly, which I'm running for, and they have a supermajority in the Senate. They're not even going to entertain this. So this platform where I can get the message out a little bit is an opportunity to speak the truth to power. And kudos I had to the GOP leadership in Albany. They've been having press conferences about that. I mean, Lakin's law is a bunt. Get rid of sanctuary city. Get rid of sanctuary city status in New York City and get rid of sanctuary states in New York State. Get rid of that. That's the first step. Cashless bail, get rid of that. But they don't even want to entertain it. So that's why this election, this November, I mean, that's not about me. I got a lot of great candidates. I've been some really good friends. Tom Sullivan you had on your show, I believe, right? I got Lou and Grassi, I got Dory Houle up here, Kimberly DeRosa up in New York. So we're getting together, a lot of people, freedom-loving Americans who understand what's taking place. We're like you said before, we're setting aside our lives for a couple of years. And we got Trisha Lindsay, another phenomenal freedom fighter, been up to Albany with her many times. These people, they see what we need to do. The first thing we need to do is get rid of the supermajority. I mean, it's step by step, one election at a time, one issue at a time. And we're working together with leadership up in Albany. So, I mean, I think we're going in, I think we got good shape. We're in good shape. And people have to remember, you have to vote from the top of the ballot to down ballot. This is a term I just entered politics. I never even heard the term down ballot until I got on the ballot. I am at the bottom of the ballot. So we have to remind everyone in this state and across the country, you got to vote at the top of the ballot, but don't ignore the bottom either.
I'll be honest, man. You know, there's a lot of bad things that happened in New York in the last decade. And I think really in the last 4 years, it really came home to roost. But I'm excited. I am. When I see people stepping outside their normal life to say, you know what, this isn't right, and I'm going to do something about it, I'm super excited. I obviously, everyone that knows me and knows Eric knows that we're in full support of Tom Lapolla. And I'm going to tell you something else that's bigger than just voting, right? Tom's running up in Assembly District 99. Tom, what exactly that cover? I know it's Monroe County, but is there anything else besides Monroe County?
It's Monroe County's up north. I'm in the village of Monroe. You're in the town of Monroe. So it covers a small section of Monroe, Woodbury, Palm Tree, Curious Joel, Cornwall, New Windsor, the town of Highlands, and a little chunk over in Rockland County, Stony Point. So it's the population about 130,000. Zeldin carried this district in 2022. So he carried it. It's a pretty red district for now. So I'm in pretty good shape. In fact, my opponent, I'll tell you the story how I ran. Is that all right? What made me run? So about 8-9 months ago, I was having coffee with my bride, and I looked at her. I says, Mary, he won by 8 votes. I think I can beat him. She walked out of the room. She goes, I don't have anything to do with this. You're on your own. You can't run. 8 votes. I said, I can beat him. And that was it. I didn't think much of it. I met him a couple of times. We had gone to his office. I'd been up in Albany, and I met him in his local district office too. Nice guy. Recall the quarantine camps? Remember that, John?
Yep.
So long as I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I'd asked him twice in person, will he denounce the governor for her executive overreach? That's all I needed him to do, and the courts found it to be executive overreach and unconstitutional. You're my representative in Albany. Please just denounce her. Put out a tweet, put out something on Facebook, make an official statement. Just denounce the governor for her executive overreach. You surpassed the legislative process. Just make a statement. And he looked at me both times and he said, no. And I looked at him face to face. And I looked at him face to face. Says, then I'm going to do everything in my power to get you unelected. I shook his hand and I left. I did it twice. And I didn't, at the time I said that, I did not realize it would be me. And then I went back to my wife. I said, and I talked to a few friends. I says, I think I can beat him. I've been always following the political world. I mean, I started following it many years ago, and I engaged with my politicians. I engaged with my leaders, wrote letters to the local paper, went to visit my representatives, let them know who I was, called when I needed to, supported good candidates when I could. And that's a big thing too, the financial support. And I would always do that. I never entered the political machine. So now I'm a politician, and I am, but I'm not a professional politician. I put term limits on myself, and my campaign manager, if he's watching, he's going to get mad at me, but it's two reasons. I'm a firm believer in term limits. I believe term limits have to be introduced at every level of government, federal, state, and local. And another reason I imposed term limits on myself, it was one of the reasons to get my wife to agree for me to run. I want to stay married, you know. I don't want to go to Albany, come home to an empty house.
Hey, Tom, friend of the podcast, Cafecito Break. They left a great comment here. We appreciate you, Tom. We will happily share any updates for your campaign. So you already have supporters behind you. Cafecito Break, they're a great crew. We really like them and appreciate them. You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing that your district in particular, I know personally, many of the cops that work for me, especially I worked in the South Bronx. I was Special Operations Lieutenant PSA 7. And you talked about when you were young, most people go north. So most of the cops that worked for me, they started moving upstate and they were living in your area. So there's a lot of cops in your district, and I'm sure they're listening, and I'm sure they're going to get behind you, especially when you're telling your story for these cops that are in law enforcement. Absolutely. And you know,
I've been on before. I was honored to receive the Orange County Shield's endorsement. Very honored. I spoke to them. They were one of the first groups I spoke to. I was honored to meet them, and I've become friends with the leadership up there. So I'm very honored to have their support.
Well deserved. You know what's great? I hear you talking. You talk about being a freedom fighter, and we talked offline before this, right? You said I'm not really a politician, you know. But that's what we want. We want people that say I'm not a politician, because it's almost at the point like, what really is a politician? Because unfortunately, sometimes we hear the word politician, I get like this creepy heebie-jeebie feelings, like some scummy person just trying to get over on you. But you are people we want. That people that had a long service and that want to serve the people, not the people.
We just blacked out over here.
Who's blacking out?
Eric, you're blacking out, dude.
My screen is perfect, man. Are you sure you're not block? I see you blocking out, actually. How's it look?
I'm good. I can see you, Eric.
Yeah, John, it's you. That's actually blocking out.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me move. All right, keep saying what you were saying.
Yeah. No problem. Listen, we had a couple of hiccups. Last week was my turn. I had a couple of hiccups, my stalling, but John this week. But Tom, what I'm saying is, you're talking about being a freedom fighter, right? And you want to serve the people, not the people serve you. And that's what's so great. We look at our forefathers, right? Our forefathers, you know, Benjamin Franklin, you spoke about, he was the oldest one, but we look at everyone else that was involved in the Constitution. They were all kids. They were all kids that just wanted a country that and it's amazing how intelligent they were. They foresaw how power could be abused, and that's what we're seeing right now. We see politicians that want the public to serve them. We see it on the local level with Mayor Eric Adams. He wants the city to serve him and not serve the people, and that's what I see from you, Tom, is that you want to serve the people. Because here, look, you're saying, I'm sure your wife at this point said, wow, she's been waiting for you to come home. You served 38 years in the fire department, and here's an opportunity for you guys to go out and live your life in bliss. And you said, no, I got to put things on hold. This is not right. This doesn't sit well with me. So I love to get into some things when it comes to law enforcement, right? Because that particularly affects John and I. And, you know, we're on this crusade to support the rank and file. So right now, I mean, what do you see as far as common sense with law enforcement? As obviously we're talking about cashless bail, right? And what are your views? Do you know about the diaphragm law? And what are your views on police officers being handicapped. And this is something that's spreading throughout the state, because in New York City, the cops really are handicapped to do their job. Is this something that we see upstate also, or has there been a dichotomy between the way that the police officers are have their policy in the city in comparison to upstate?
I don't know. I'm not really familiar with all of the different agencies up here with their policies as compared to New York City, but in general terms, handcuffing the New York City Police Department and police officers is a mistake. I think, John, I think somebody posted, maybe one of you gentlemen posted recently, the X-ray machine outside of the subway station, and I'm like I said before, if you're willing to give up your freedom for security, you're entitled to none. So we'll do that. People are okay with that, but they're against stop and frisk, which you guys know better than I do, was a very effective attempt to rein in the guns. And it was working, correct? You guys did it. I didn't do it, but stop and frisk worked. Now, I mean, you're afraid to, if you're afraid to implement policies that are going to take guns off the street from the bad guys, then the bad guys are going to be the only ones with the guns. I mean, anything, and I always tell people that the term thin blue line, that you guys are, without you, the more you make that thinner and eventually eradicate it, the next step is anarchy. And if you don't have support from your politicians in New York City, which obviously New York City has the same problem as New York State, it's run by Democrats. And if people don't recognize that and vote wisely come this November, that line, and you will completely spread that. And the next step is anarchy. And you're starting to see it not only in New York City, you're starting to see it around the world as well. And that's by design too. This is not by chance. This isn't something that's taking place by chance. The police departments and police agencies across the state and across the nation need to be supported by the local politicians, but not the police departments as much, but the police officers. The police officers shouldn't be afraid going into work that if they do something, that they're going to be held accountable. That's, I mean, accountability, we all understand about accountability, but doing your job, hey, making an arrest of somebody is not an easy thing. Even somebody that I'm sure, and you guys have made plenty of them, even somebody that's very accommodating says, yeah, I'm good. It's still an ugly thing to watch, but people think but that's what you do. And that's how you keep law and order. And if you handcuff your officers, that's the first step towards anarchy. And people, anarchy, it's a strong word. we saw it a few years ago, right, with the riots, when they were able to do whatever they wanted and no one called them in check. Police officers need to be supported by local politicians, and I finish, and I've said it, not at their funerals either. That's not supporting our police officers. That's a photo op. I'm talking about supporting them with policies and giving them the ability to do their jobs and do their jobs safely, and be able to do their jobs, not only protect themselves, but to protect the people in the communities that they serve.
100%. Sorry, I blacked out over there. I'm still getting the remnants of Debbie. We got hit pretty hard yesterday, so my house is a little mess. So after this, I got a little bit of work to be doing. But listen, what I was saying earlier, as I was alluding to, is it's bigger than if you don't live in Monroe County or Assembly District 99. We need to break up the supermajority in Assembly. So if you know somebody that lives there, send them Tom's information. You know, bigger than the money. Of course, he needs money to run the campaign, so send donations. But bigger than the money is the outreach. Call your friend. Make sure you're voting for Tom Lapolla. There's another guy that I want to plug here, and you already plugged him, Tom Sullivan, for another friend of this podcast. And if you guys could just take a minute, him as well. He's running in Queens, Assembly District 23. And again, if you don't live in the district that he covers, call your friends, call your relatives. We need to get people like in here. There's another guy that doesn't need to be doing this. He's doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He's doing it because he believes in the mission, and he wants to save not only New York, but the country. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
Well done. Well done. Tom's become a good friend too.
You know what's interesting is that you both are serving, and you're both named Tom. I thought that was quite so. They're both Tom. There must be something to it. You know, I think at this point it's great. We're talking about law enforcement, and you hear Tom Sullivan talking about supporting law enforcement. They can do their job. You're saying the same thing. Now, we also spoke about illegal aliens, the migrant crisis. The military-age males that are unvetted in this country, I think, is the biggest security threat right now to this entire country, but especially in New York City and ultimately New York State, right? I say that New York City is the touchdown when it comes to military-age males. These open borders they cross, and where do they go? Right to New York City for food, shelter, and potentially a job, according to New York City Mayor Eric Adams. But what happens once they're in New York City and it becomes transient, and military-age unvetted males realize that they can travel in New York State and there's other pastures and other opportunities. And some of these military-age males, and I can confirm this because I spoke with some Coast Guard members who are still serving right now, and they serve on the Gulf of Mexico, and they encountered numerous illegal-aged military males trying to get into this country by boat, and they have felony convictions. They're unwanted in their countries, and yet they come into America, crossing the border unvetted. So what are your thoughts about these military-age males traveling throughout New York State? What can we do about it? What can we do about these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary state laws, so that they actually get amended? Because we saw an article the other day. There was an article in the New York Post. Right? How do we document and keep data of these military-age gang members? And I said, isn't that funny that they're asking this? You know, the Democrats always create the disease and they want to treat the symptoms. Yet the New York City Council does not want to have a gang database. We have a sanctuary city, so we cannot actually ask these immigrants their status. But yet they want to compile the data, which just completely doesn't make sense. So how do we move forward to protect the people?
Well, the first thing is it is an existential threat, like you just suggested, no doubt. The problem initiates at the national level. You know, I was listening to somebody the other day. It's an illegal immigration problem, no doubt, but it stems most importantly from a border security issue. Unless we close that border, and you have to close it immediately, and that's elections matter. You know, the person running on the Democratic ticket this November, at least as of now, was the border czar, and I don't think she's been to the border yet. We need to close the border. Now, in regards to New York State, now, the sanctuary state policies are basically an invitation to all of these. It's the complete opposite of what the Statue of Liberty invites us to do. It's coming here and taking advantage of, like I said before, plundering and pillaging. I mean, and also just a quick point. We have the southern border to be concerned about. I mean, I'm still waiting on the current governor of New York State to address the northern border. We have illegals coming from the northern border as well. And you gentlemen know, as I do, know exactly what takes place. Military-age men, and how many unvetted, how many of them are terrorists? How many of them are terrorists? We're one day away from the next terrorist attack. And you keep inviting them in. There's a crime issue. I'm learning more and more about these Venezuelan gangs. They're a scary group. And they came from a country that really didn't have any law enforcement. Now they're coming into a country that they don't care. And the first targets is your brotherhood and sisterhood. They're the ones that they're going to go after first. And then, again, goes back to anarchy. The illegal immigration crisis, border security crisis has to be fixed. And like one famous politician said years ago, elections have consequences, and we're seeing them. What we need to do is first point out the problem, and if you don't do that, it's going to keep getting worse. You guys see it, I see it, but the Democrats in Albany don't, and the Democrats in City Council don't at all. But it's an existential threat. I see that as an existential threat, no doubt.
100%, it's an existential threat, and it's politically created. I mean, everything we're talking about, everything we talk about on this show, everything you talk about every time you do an event, Tom, this is all politically created. And how do we undo it? Through politics, through putting the right people in, through putting guys like Tom Lapolla, who's not there. He's not a career politician. He's still not a politician. He's a chief. In my eyes, you're always going to be a chief, because you're actually leading. You're showing the people what leadership is. You're putting your good name on the line. You're going out there. You're stepping in front for all of us, and you're doing it really to save the state. So we need to get behind people like Tom Lapolla. Tom, what other issues are the people in your district concerned with? Anything that you want to bring up here that we haven't discussed? Anything that stands out to you, or that you think that people should know that you want to try to push forward in the assembly?
Well, we've addressed crime, right, and the illegal immigration. If you got my palm card, I got my 5 points. Crime, supporting law enforcement, the illegal immigration crisis, obviously the economy. We saw what happened yesterday with the stock market crash, right? These are all core values, core issues. But my number one priority right now, parental rights. Parental rights are number one. And I'm meeting people that I know are Democrats, and I look at them and say, look at my number one platform item. It transcends political ideology. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a liberal, or a conservative. Parental rights take primacy over every other issue. New York State, there was a bill introduced, 6167, by Assemblywoman Reyes in the Bronx, which would essentially allow minor children to seek out and get medical care without parental consent. Without parental consent. And it's a bill on the book. Well, it's obviously it's off because the legislative session has died. She'll probably reintroduce it in January. And right now that we have Prop 1 here in New York State. You familiar with Prop 1?
Could you explain it for the audience?
Well, Prop 1 needs to be voted down, right? The message needs to get out. What it is, they're gonna gaslight us and tell us it's about abortion, and abortion is abhorrent, and I'm not gonna go in that direction. That this is an opportunity for the Democrats, who have nothing else to run on. They can't run on the crime issue. They can't run on the economy. They can't run on anything else. The only thing they can run on is abortion, which is already legislatively protected in New York State up to the 9th month. But all they want to do now is codify it into the New York State Constitution. But what it also does, but there's no need for it. They're using that one word as a club to get the voters out. You got to defend abortion. You got to defend abortion. Put that aside. What it does is it introduces new protected classes, gender identity, gender expression, and then at the end, age. Age is now a protected identity. Age is that means young children, young minors will be able to seek out medical care, life-altering medical care, which is sometimes irreversible without parental consent. And I also say this, let's be clear, even with parental consent, any affirmation of a child by giving them puberty blockers under 14 or cutting off healthy body parts, that's not healthcare. That's child abuse. And I don't care if parents agree to it or not, but this would allow for children to go out, seek that care, and if the parents aren't on board with it, the parents still would have to pay for it. It's going to destroy female sports, and it's going to be an attack on freedom of religion with churches that are against certain types of marriages. The Catholic Church, which I profess, would be a target, in my opinion. So no, the Prop 1 has to be discussed openly, and that message has to be out there. And some people are calling it the parental rights the Parental Replacement Act, and it would do just that by adding that one specific protected class of age. Who would define it? There's no guardrails. You can read it. It's one page. It's so broad. But it's gonna be used with other pieces of legislation. So people are gonna be able to use it as a club to get what they want through. And once it becomes an amendment in the Constitution, it'll be near impossible to rescind. Be very difficult to. So vote no on Prop 1. Vote no on Prop 1.
Hey, you listen to our audience right now. We got quite a few people here are engaged. Good morning, everybody. Please listen to Tom Lapolla, real lifelong service with the FDNY, 38 years retired from as a chief with the fire department, but now serving and running for the 99th Assembly District. And I think it's great, the stuff that you're talking about, because it's everything that we talk about constantly, is that we can't just walk away from our careers that have been just deteriorated. We can't walk away from this country that has been deteriorated, infected by Marxism, this social democrat ideology, because if we do, we may be fine temporarily. We may be fine for the rest of our lives. But you just said it. What about our kids, right? That's why John stood up against this mandate with his career, because it's ultimately the big picture is, if they're going to do it to him and they're going to do it to us, what's going to happen to our kids? And these are the things that we have to stand up. I say it all the time, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We have to stand up for our kids, because that's ultimately who's going to bear the responsibility, the liability to this, right? That really the infection of the country. It's sick. It's almost crazy that when you actually provide this information about, talk about puberty blockers and age when it comes to this bill, I sit here, it's like, it sounds like mental illness, and just normal people. We sat back and listened. It's like, this doesn't sound normal. This sounds crazy. It really does.
It's demonic.
It's demonic. I think that's a great way to put it, Tom. Honestly, I really do. So, I mean, we're standing up for parental rights, which I think is fantastic, and we're talking about law enforcement here. And I mean, ultimately, the law enforcement profession has been just completely emasculated. And I want to thank you, because I've been saying for the longest time, where are these old white males from the New York City Police Department? Old male, they say too stale and too pale. And where are they to stand up against the atrocities that are going on towards law enforcement, towards our kids, because they see it going on, but they don't speak up. We've had numerous old white males in power, in positions of power, and the ability to speak up, to fight these atrocities, and take the opportunity to serve like yourself. We have, former Commissioner Dermot Shea and Jimmy O'Neill, and the Chief of the Department, Terrence Monahan, and we have Joe Fox, and all these old white males that have the opportunity to fight these atrocities, but they don't. And that's the comparison. John and I spoke about this a long time ago. He had put out this tweet comparing the chiefs of the police department in comparison to the fire department, and that the fire department chiefs are willing to do the job, unlike the police officers, unlike the chiefs in law enforcement, because it's self-serving and they have benefits, and it's beneficial for them to not do the job. And that's the comparison that we see there. And I really thank you for standing up and doing that. I just want to say I appreciate that.
I just want to say, Eric, your mic is terrible. It's cracking. But I just want to say, it's not, I won't even say just the chiefs in the NYPD. I'm saying this guy right here. This guy right here. It's not all the chiefs, because we've seen a lot of them go the same route and politically button up and all that. And 5EO, I see a comment, and absolutely not. That is not the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the sanctity of our nation's under attack. The sanctity of every law is under attack. How could we fix minor problems when we're not fixing the major one? Yeah, taxes are an issue. Get a common sense guy like Tom Lapolla in, and maybe you could work on the taxes. Get a common sense guy like Tom Lapolla in, and he could stop your districts from being rezoned. All right, so that's not the elephant in the room. I'm just sorry about that. Sorry.
No, that's good. And correct me if I'm wrong. You guys may know the history of it a little bit better than I do. In the 70s, there was unfortunately, a couple of cops were ambushed, and it became very political. I forget the specifics. I know my father-in-law, God rest his soul, was very aware of it. But I was doing some research on it, and if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it was mishandled at City Hall, the chief of operations resigned. He quit in support of the way his members were being. I mean, unless I'm mistaken on that, but that was leadership. He stood up to the city. He stood up to City Hall, and sometimes you have to stand up to them. And to John. Now, John's been giving me kudos, and I appreciate it, John. But I look at John, my treasurer on my team. He's my friend. You know, he's a retired bomb squad detective, phenomenal man. You, John, and other people that I meet, not necessarily in the fire service or law enforcement. I met somebody the other day. She told me his son, he has 5 children. He was a carpenter in New York City. They made him get the shot. He wouldn't. He left. He reinvented himself. He has 5 children. He reinvented himself. And I looked at her. I said, you tell your son he's a hero. Then I saw a teacher. I was out in my district meeting the folks. And I saw a friend of mine I used to work with. He introduced me, told my story. This is my daughter-in-law, the same thing. She was a teacher. She was pregnant. And she wouldn't take the shot. And she left the job. I looked at it. You're a hero. So yes, we're on the forefront. We're the face. Where we have the platform because we were but those people, and they might not see it themselves, but they're heroes. And history is going to tell us that. And John is one of them. So John's become a good friend. We've been, and like my friend Craig, all these people are heroes. And this grassroots fight, if you will, is what's going to save this country. And me doing it here locally. Tom Lapolla is not going to Washington. Tom Lapolla is not going to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But Tom Lapolla can do his little thing up in Albany for 4 years. And by the grace of God, I will. And with support from guys like you, I certainly will.
You know, the reality is, Tom, you said numerous times, you know, I'm not a politician and I'm running in politics. But really, you are. Because ultimately, what I think politics should be and what I want from politicians is exactly what you just said, leadership. I think that's what we expect. We should expect from politics and politicians themselves is to be in a position of leadership and to lead people, right? Because that's the difference for me. I think that managers manage things, right? We're not working at Walmart here. We're not part of a corporation. We're not managing things. But leaders, true leaders, they manage people. And that's why you are a politician. And that's why you should be in politics, because you care about people. You have an opportunity, like I said, just to go out and bliss, be on vacation, enjoy yourself. But you said to yourself, I have to do this. So can you tell me, why do you think, why do you think that you got to this point? Like, why you? Why do you feel that this is your calling? I mean, because here you are, 38 years. You could say, okay, I missed out on 2 years. But why you? Obviously, you talked about your children, but what else do you think is this your calling to do this life of service, to continue this life of service and serve in this manner?
You know, I love my family. I think you said it before, Eric. I mean, I can go through the rest of my life and live a comfortable life, but I want my grandchildren to turn around and say, my grandfather did something. And whatever it is that we're doing, what you gentlemen are doing with this platform, you're doing something. Not everyone's going to run for office, but you have to do something. Now, I have a team that's supporting me. My treasurer, he left the police department for the same reason you and I did, John. And he's a hero. My campaign manager, an old curmudgeon, I say it with love, lifelong military guy. And then I have a few other people that I've met by chance. You know where I met them? I actually met them. They live in my community district. We had never met each other. We were both going into my opponent's office to have a discussion with them before I even knew I was getting that opportunity to run. And now they're part of my team, and they're doing something. So if you're not going to run, that's fine. You got to do something and get behind a candidate that lives in your district. Go knock on doors for them. Support them financially. And if you can't do that, make phone calls. Use social media, write letters to the paper. And that's what I used to do. That's what I felt. But now it's like, now's the time. I have a little energy. Now I have the energy. I'm 61. Somebody actually asked me once, why are you running for such a high position in the state level first time? I said, well, I'm not going to run for dog catcher and run for 4 or 5 years and then try to run for assembly when I hit 70. This is it. I got the energy right now. The momentum is on my side, I think, at this point. My platform is a clear contrast to my opponents. I just put out a post this morning. Most of the people that are running on the Democratic line in New York State, and even across the nation, and I'm learning a little bit about it as well. The Working Families Party. I mean, that's a socialist party. I mean, if you look at their vision for the country, they said it. They say it on their website. We need political power to get the lives we deserve. Excuse me? That's not in the Constitution. That's not in the Declaration of Independence. It's individual opportunities for the pursuit of happiness, not through political power. And these are the people that are running. The Democrats associate themselves with the Working Families Party. That I'm looking, the more I learn about that party, that's the party of AOC. That's the party of every progressive radical that's in the process of trying to destroy this great nation. Like a key word, trying. It's not done yet. We got strong fighters here, and I'm sure you guys are going to continue to fight. But that needs to be addressed too, making sure that everybody does something to put a halt on that socialist onslaught. And that's what it is. I mean, I never thought we'd be saying that word in this nation, but it is. It's an onslaught by progressives, and that's because they control every institution, and that's a much larger scale and a much larger discussion for a later date. But we have to get control back of the institutions, and the institutions they are aiming at right now: police departments, fire departments, military. Let me now. All of us, right? And this is how I look at it now, and I'll get back to you guys. What does every little boy want to do when he's a child? Cop or fireman, No. Really, in the end, who's the first person they see as a man? Their dad. And then the next person they see that represents manhood is somebody in uniform, a cop, a fireman, a construction worker. So everyone aspires to that. But ultimately, very few of us achieve that. So really what a little boy wants to do when he grows up is be a man. That's what he wants to do. And if you can weaken manhood in those institutions which have always represented manhood, then you can destroy society and take control of the young men growing up now. So they need to destroy the police departments, the police agencies, not only in New York City, but across the nation. And the same thing with the fire service as well, because they're representative of that alpha male that you're discussing, Eric.
Absolutely. And, Tom, I just want to say before John, maybe it comes up with a question here, that what you're saying is true leadership. That's why you need to be in politics, and you need to win. Everyone has to get behind you, especially law enforcement, because what you're saying is true leadership, is that not everyone has to serve, but everyone has to make a contribution. We all need to be on the team. Everyone has something to offer. That's what I used to say when I was in a position of leadership, that I would build my team, kind of like Voltron, and each piece and put them together. And I would say I form the head, but everyone has something to offer, and we have to find the characteristics and traits of each person, what they can offer. Just like you said, some people could knock on doors. Some people could actually serve like yourself, and everyone has to utilize and be purposeful, but they have to actually get out there and either put their finger on it or they have to speak on it. But we actually have to take action. And that's really what it takes. We just can't sit back. We got to take action.
100%.
Listen, what you're talking about, Tom, is like, we talk about it a lot, like the emasculation of America, the emasculation of society, the emasculation of the NYPD, the FDNY. And I never really heard it put like that. And I have to agree with that's exactly what it is. It's a weakening of society. It's a weakening of storied institutions intentionally, because all the pieces fall after that. So we got a comment here. Staying in New York is like being a violin player on the deck of the Titanic. Get your family on a life raft, get safe, and get south. And I just want to say right now, like, I'm in Florida. I still own a home in Staten Island, and I still fight with myself daily to not move back and run for office and do what Tom's doing, because I know everything that I'm seeing happening in New York City, then throughout New York State, is happening in Red, Florida, right where I live. The exact same blueprint. And, the only reason I came to Florida is I needed to support my family at the time. I couldn't collect my pension right away, and I needed to be able to open a business. I couldn't even eat in a restaurant at one point. And I have 2 children I have to feed. So I couldn't do that in New York State. New York State threw me in the garbage. So that was why I moved my family to Florida. And now we have laws in New York State where my children can't go to school because they're not entitled to a religious exemption. So my children are here in school, but I fight with myself every day to not move back to New York City and put that fight. But I know that that means me leaving my children here and fighting in a state far away from them and flying back and forth to see them. And something I'm not willing to do at this point. But that's why my whole conversation's based around New York and around New York City, because as so goes New York, so goes the world. And if we give up the ship there, there's going to be nowhere left to run soon. And so every time I hear that, I heard Dan Bongino say it before I moved, and I went nuts. I sent them messages. I was like, you're a coward, blah, 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 blah. And then I did it. I was basically put in the choice to do nothing. But I don't agree at all. New York is the front. We got to support it. The people that are dug in. Tom's going to mentor other people when he gets in. Tom Sullivan's going to mentor other candidates. And we're going to take back the supermajority. We're going to end the supermajority, and then we're going to end the majority. And we're going to take back city council, and we're going to do it step by step. We can't get down to the minutia of the nonsense that has been put in place by these evil people without that happening. Right now, we're putting in defensive backs. Tom's going to be a defensive back. Tom Sullivan is a defensive back. We're going to play defense until we build a strong enough offense, and then we're going to go forward, and that is the blueprint. So, Tom, if there's anything we missed, I know you got a busy day. If there's anything we missed, anything you want to talk about before we get off, please let us know. The floor is yours.
I like what you just described. That's exactly the way I look at it, John. I'm playing defense for now. I mean, I'm going to go up there. I like the way you describe it. I'm going to probably steal that. But I'm looking at it. I've got to go to Albany. There's a dam with 1,000 holes in it. Tom Lapolla could put his thumb in one of those holes, maybe 2 or 3. But that's it. I'm playing defense. I wasn't a big guy, so I couldn't play linebacker. So when I did play football in the mean streets of Staten Island, that's the position I played, defensive back. But you said something too, John, and what you did with your family, and you reinvented yourself, and you went down to Florida, and you provided for your family. That's what men do. So that's what you did was phenomenal. And just New York State, by the way, is probably one of the most beautiful states in the country, but unfortunately destroyed by politicians. And I'm just going to make a general statement, because you and I had a discussion about this the other day, John, and you said something. You couldn't eat in a restaurant. I got kicked out of restaurants too in New York. Your children couldn't go to school here without getting vaccinated. Well, there's a new piece of legislation that the state senator that represents me now introduced that would take that vaccine mandate and take it to the next level for secondary schools, for college, to get rid of religious exemptions for college. The next step is just to get rid of all religious exemptions. And he's my state senator. So all I can say is that any municipal agency, that unions should be very careful in who they support. If they support people that support policies that caused myself, but more importantly, guys like John and my friend, my treasurer and everybody else that lost their job and had to move out of the state or just were terminated. My friends from Bravest for Choice, they were on leave without pay for a year. There's 3 or 4 of them, Sal and Matt and Karen. I want them back to work. So if these unions better be very careful on who they endorse come November. If they endorse anyone that endorses or supports policies that caused us to lose our jobs, then they don't deserve our support. They don't deserve our support. And they better, and I've had this discussion with leadership, they got to be careful on who they support. These politicians in Albany left us hanging, and they're introducing other policies that would get rid of all of those religious exemptions. And that, my friends, goes against what our Constitution provides for. So I would hope that they're wise in who they endorse, or even if the best thing for them maybe to do is just to stay neutral in certain races, because the politicians that they endorse have done great harm to the men and women of both our agencies and sanitation and to teachers, like Michael Caine fighting over there for Teachers for Choice. How many teachers lost their jobs? So they have to be wise in who they support. That was it, John. I could go on and on and on and on. That's the last thing you want to do is give me the open floor.
No. We listen again. This floor is an opportunity to give out your message and really talk about what you support, your legislation, how you're going to support the people. That's really what it's about, leading people. We got a comment from Corn Pop. He said, today is the best that New York City will ever be. It's never getting better. And you know what, Corn Pop, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with that. That's why we need people like myself and John to be the squeaky wheel on podcasts like this, and to support people like Tom Lapolla, who want a life of service, that actually care about people, not looking to manage things, not looking to have a self-serving career for his own benefit, but actually serve the people. Let's be honest. Do you need the money for this? Absolutely not. I'm sure this is more of an inconvenience for you than anything, but you actually care. And I can tell you actually enjoy. You enjoy helping people, you know, and that's what life should be, right? That in life we receive, and you know, we build a family, but we also give back also. And you're giving back to the community, you're leading, you actually care. You brought up strong points, you know, and I really appreciate you supporting John, because I say it all the time. I support John also, that he stood up against this mandate, because I had taken the shot way before the mandate actually was administered. My father died of COVID. He was in a nursing home. You know, I served in the Marine Corps. I said, I got so many shots. I didn't put any thought into it. But when I saw people like John and the men and women that worked for me, that were put in this position to make a decision, that's where I woke up and said, whoa, wait a minute. I don't stand for this. This is a choice that you should have to make. I chose to take it because I didn't care. And also they made it super convenient for me and didn't even give me an opportunity to even think about it. I walked into the precinct. They were there in the muster room administering the shots. I'm like, all right, well, what's one more? Never put a thought. But for people that actually have religious beliefs and stood and said, listen, I'm not taking this. And then you couldn't go to restaurants. It's disgusting to even hear that we're at this point. So, Tom, I want to just express my gratitude. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I hope that we stay in touch. Honestly, I think we can build a great friendship here, and I love what you're doing, and just the fact that you're 61 years old and you want to serve, and the way that you explain why you're going for a higher office at this point makes extreme amount of sense. And I think people need to get behind you, especially law enforcement. I'm sure the firemen are extremely behind you, teachers, and you support everyone. And what you said is so key. You know, we had an episode on this podcast, make the NYPD masculine again. It's a shame, you know, that we have to say that. You know, John, I think you wear like a G.I. Joe type shirt here, you know, and that's what we want. We want to bring it back where it's okay. Right. Lions, it's a G.I. Joe symbol, but it's okay to be an alpha male, to aspire to be. And unfortunately, this country is trying to deviate and deteriorate that and almost make it like shameful to be an alpha male. No longer do we see Rocky movies and Rambo movies and movies like Commando when we were kids and wanting to be that alpha male. We need to bring that back, because that's what supports this country. Strong men with alpha ideologies, with masculinity, support this country. Tom, you are a real man. Thank you so much for what you do. If there's any last words that you have, I'm behind you. You got my support. Tom Lapolla, Tom Sullivan, real patriots, real Americans. Thank you so much.
And Tom, just before you go, just please let everybody know where we could find you, where we could donate. For everybody watching, listening now and in the future, the links to Tom's website are all below wherever you're watching or listening to this, as well as the links for Tom Sullivan. And like I said, if you don't live there, call your friends, call your family, let them know about Tom Lapolla.
Yeah, it's Lapolla for Assembly is my website. So that's the best place you can go. That'd be great. And I just want to end this, if you don't mind, making men again. And what's under attack is the family, the structural unit, the basic foundation of our nation is the family. And the first person they need to destroy the family is the father, is the male lead in that family. And I realize that. So, and I will leave you with this. When I started this campaign, I took the opportunity to speak with my pastor. He actually passed away. And then I spoke with my local priest. I dedicated this campaign to the head of the Holy Family, St. Joseph. So St. Joseph, pray for us, you know, make men again. And thank God for men like you and the other men that I've been working with. And you know what? And thank God for the women I've worked with throughout the last couple of years. My friend Sophie, Karen, Kristen, everyone. I mean, I've met some very good people, and now I'm honored. I've met John before. We've spoken many times. I've been watching you, Eric. I'm honored to now call you good friends. I appreciate your friendship and your support.
Oh, likewise. You got it, man. Tom, it's been a pleasure. You know, John was telling me great things about you, and I said I can't wait to do this podcast. I look forward to meeting him. And man, you are far more than everything that John said. Honestly, I got a lot of gratitude for you and Tom Sullivan. You guys are, at this point, really, you could just go sit on a beach and go, you know what, whatever happens, happens. But no, you decided to put your feet in the ground. So, man, I can't thank you enough. Outstanding.
Cheers, Lancia, and then let's make New York great again.
Let's make New York great again, baby. Thank you for everybody tuning in. To you guys tuning in, me and Eric are going to come back on. There's another topic I think that happened last night that we need to discuss, but I don't want to get into it here. Tom, it was a pleasure, brother. Great and powerful. Tom Lapolla. People, get out there. Make sure you support him. Tom, was a pleasure. Eric, always a pleasure, my brother. Let's keep it moving.
Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Thanks, Tom.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community, but who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.